Lambo. And it's opponent in the top left, representing Cascade Esports. Here's the French Protoss player. You ready?
I'm waiting for it.
It's Adrian Bouet, DnS. Yeah, I call him Adrian. We're tight like that.
Yeah, you call the players by their first names because you're tight like that?
Whatever the meme is, yeah.
I was going to say, I wish I knew all the copy pastas.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, jeez. Grant, you make a really good point, though, as we get into this first game. These players have been around for ages now. DnS and Lambo played. I can't remember if they both in Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm, but for just years and years now. Both incredibly talented players. Look, you can't play StarCraft professionally for years and years unless you're just so damn good. And both these players are. But as you said, both of them not quite at the peak of their careers, and both of them are really hoping that this tournament is an opportunity for them to showcase the fact that they are still top-tier EU players. We're now on to Group C, which means that all the players in Group C have only played one game in the tournament so far. Lambo won his first series. It was a very tight race, but a 2-1 win against Cass, a player who I think some people were surprised to see him struggle against. And unfortunately, of course, DnS lost his first series against Skillous, probably the expected result. So both of these guys really hoping that Game 2 gives them an opportunity to show off just how good they really are.
Yeah, and Lambo versus Cass, we say Lambo won that series, but he did come from 0-1 down. And he lost to something odd, right? He lost to like Mass BC Mech, which you don't see that often at the top level anymore. In this series, I think Lambo will be comfortable knowing that he's probably going to be playing against something quite standard. DnS isn't a wacky, waving, inflatable arm, flailing tube man of a player.
Right.
He's most likely going to go Stargate. He's going to make a Phoenix and a couple of Oracles. He might make a Void Ray, but I don't see we're going to see a lot of them. DnS is just a run-of-the-mill standard Protoss player.
Grant, I am so tickled that you actually know the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. That makes me so happy.
I got you.
Thanks, man. I love that everybody in chat who's under the age of like 30 has no idea what we're talking about because it's a Family Guy joke from 2004 or something.
Yeah.
Ages ago.
That's when Max Pax was born.
Oh, gross, Grant. I'm gonna go take a prune. Gonna go eat a prune and go to bed at like 7 o'clock tonight and think about my life. Void Ray first though from DnS, which, as you said, a viable option for Protoss players. And I gotta say, Grant, I want to hear if you agree with me or not. But my hot take is that these Void Ray openers against Zerg are so strong for so many reasons.
Yeah, I completely agree. For one, they kill Overlords very quickly, and you can say, well, Phoenix just kill Overlords. The difference between the Phoenix opening and the Void Ray opening is, sure, you trade off a tiny bit of speed moving around the map, but you will not die. If there was now like a roach all in, you'd be safe. One Void Ray with a battery, very, very strong here. It also, you can send it across the map. It does everything the Phoenix does, plus it shoots down. So the only thing you're trading off is just a little bit of speed. You're not reliant on energy. You're not reliant on multiple. You can find damage with just that one unit. And right now he's using it almost like a Terran does, a Viking, where he's clearing Overlords so he can get that Oracle across the map.
Yeah, Oracle across the map clears the space there, and lots of opportunities now for DnS to really establish himself. We'll see if the Oracle can sneak through and get any damage done. I mean, highly unlikely, though, Grant. Lambo's a player who should be more than prepared for this. The Spore's already coming down. And he has yet to commit to any Tier 2 tech, though. No lair tech for DnS, or for Lambo, rather. No lair tech for either player, let's be honest. But no lair tech for Lambo. No Baneling Nest, no nothing right now. Just him getting that third base up. And there it is, finally. Roach Warren goes down for Lambo.
Yeah, it is going to be Glaive Depth behind this for DnS. So he's going into a delayed Glaive Depth push with a third base. And I like this. This is, I wouldn't say this is typical DnS. I've not cast a lot of him like recently.
Right.
I always feel like he's a Templar, Twilight Council kind of player, and that's his wheelhouse. But this is cool. I like to see it go for something a little bit more aggressive, maybe. How many gates are we looking at? 5 right now, so it's all good. We'll be seeing a good amount of Glaive Adepts coming, and if there aren't enough roaches, if Lambo didn't get the roach for it or doesn't produce enough of those defensive roaches, there's potential that this could really find some damage.
Yeah, this is always a tough place, I think, for a Protoss player.
How many there are?
Yeah, there's a ton. a tough place for a Protoss player here with the Glaive Adepts with no Robo behind this. And it's tough because he started out with a Stargate and didn't get that much damage done, right? The Oracle didn't get a lot of kills, and now he's following it up with like a weaker version of a Glaive Adept push that doesn't have the Warp Prism to support it. So while it's still possible for these to do a lot of damage, and we do see the 7 roaches for Lambo only just now about to finish, it's still possible for these Adepts to do a lot of damage, but it is just like a little bit later attack than you'd normally see with no Warp Prism to sustain it. That said, he's in this third base, already a drone pull here. This is so many Glaive Adepts, Grant.
Yeah, this is a huge amount of Glaive Adepts, and that upgrade just paying in dividends because they can trade against roaches. Going to take down the Spore Cooler, may even just try and target down the base here. This amount of Glaive Adepts can kill the base. He doesn't want to stand and take a prolonged fight with more than like 5 or 6 roaches. He should let this shade complete. I imagine yep, going to go into the natural, and this is where we should see a bit more damage. Only 6 workers so far, but a heck of a lot of lost mining time. Lots of roaches being forced here. For DnS so far, I think he'll be happy. I'd like to see him maybe get a few more, and he's going into the main where that will be the case, I believe.
Yeah, a nice drone pull again from Lambo there, but as you said, a lot of lost mining time. The shades from DnS are not really being responded to as well as you would hope. No. Lambo just a little bit behind the 8 ball. Finally, as he goes in the natural, he's got another battalion of roaches here waiting, but with good focus fire, we're going to see a lot more damage being done by these Adepts. Now, the real benefit for this of DnS is not just the lost mining time and the drone kills, which are nice, obviously. Being ahead of a Zerg player in workers is great, but also he hasn't over-invested. You know, I raised my eyebrows earlier and was skeptical because he didn't have a Warp Prism to sustain that Glaive Adept push. It hit a little bit late. I didn't know if he was going to be able to do as much damage as he did. The good news for DnS, though, is that means he didn't waste time with his Robo kicking out a Warp Prism, kicking out extra observers. He can go straight into those Immortals, go straight into Robo Bay, and hopefully hold up against the counter push by the counter Roach push by Lambo, and have enough coming out of his Robo to really defend. Lambo going Baneling Nest and Spire behind this. He's going to transition back to Ling Bane Muta, Grant.
I'm kind of surprised actually that Lambo didn't go for any kind of counter pressure. He killed all of the Adepts minus like 2. As the Revelation goes down on the north side, and he had like for a small amount of time he's had 29 roaches, and there was 1 Immortal, 1 Void Ray, 1 Oracle, and like 2 Sentries. If he'd have gone, he would have forced minimum a lot more units, maybe more Adepts to be made, which is what DnS doesn't want to be making at this point. Instead of opting to sit back, take his 4th a little bit late here. They were both on 3 bases for a while. DnS's economy is great. It's really solid. He's taken, has he lost even, like, he's lost a probe, and that would have been an initial scouting probe. And now he's moving into Colossus. He's got Blink. He's got everything he needs. So I like DnS's position more and more as this game continues.
Yeah, I do. It'll be an interesting transition here from Lambo, as we said, to see if this Ling Bane Muta is able to do anything. He's already dropping an Infestation Pit, though, and ooh, interesting choice from DnS to move out here, Grant. Do you think this is smart? DnS obviously knows what he's up against. He's read this Roach push. He's got him revelated, for goodness sakes, and he's still going to push into this 4th base, despite there being a crap ton of Roach on the map. Do you think this is a good push from DnS?
Yeah, I think minimum what he's doing is he's forcing units, he's forcing Lings to be made. He's just using a bit of energy as long as he's careful and doesn't overcommit. He's got like a shed ton here of Immortals that can take big fights. He's got a good force field count. The Void Ray offering free real estate here in the air. We do see Hive on the way for our Zerg player, but meanwhile Colossus production has been ramping up at home. There is already 1, I believe, and another 1 on the way, and these are all an unknown entity right now for Lambo. So DnS is just sort of making Lambo play his game at the moment, I feel like. But DnS is on a little bit of a timer because as Hive finishes, as we see most likely the Greater Spire, I would guess, coming in, DnS will need to be ready to respond.
Yeah, a really interesting push there from DnS, and I think you're absolutely right, Grant. I don't think that was intended to knock down the 4th base or take out the army. I think he was just trying to force Lambo to build a couple more of these low-tech Tier 1, Tier 1.5 units, so that when the Colossus came out, they'll be even more effective. I think that was more of a scare tactic to say, hey, I could attack you, better build some more units. Meanwhile, back home, I'm going to get some Colossi. They're going to do even more work against your low-tech army now. 16 Banes on the way. Lambo controlling the middle of the map right now. And is he going to go ahead and try and push into this 4th base despite everything that his opponent has? 1 queen going to get picked down, or 2 queens going to get picked down there. But it looks like Lambo moving forward, Grant. This looks a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, he does have a huge concave here. He's actually going to send a bunch of these Banelings round to the other side. And Ling's not going to be able to get in, but the Banelings actually mainly crashing on Stalkers. A couple get just about to the Colossus, but really nothing stupendous here.
Whoa.
This is starting to look a little bit scary, I think, for Lambo. He just lost a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he lost a lot of stuff at the front there. Lambo overestimating his position because, of course, that Baneling flank that we talked about actually did a really nice job going all the way around, softening up those Stalkers in the back. But look at the Stalkers right now, Grant. Almost all of them at low, half health, not enough health. And I think Lambo was like, okay, great. Those Banelings hit the way I wanted to. That means the rest of my attack, the rest of my attack's dead. Okay, dang. So while the Baneling run by did really well, as you noted, his Roach Ravager count very low. Viper's coming out, though. Viper's the absolute correct choice. He may or may not transition to Greater Spire. It's looking less and less likely as the game goes on. Vipers, though, a beautiful choice against Colossi for those yoinks and for those blinding clouds against the Stalkers.
Yeah, DnS is going to have to deal with this counterattack. Both players' upgrades are okay, only sitting at +2. +1 air weapons has been researched here for Lambo. He doesn't have any air units though, which is always an interesting turn of affairs here for our Zerg player. Not benefiting at all from the income that he has put into that Ultralisk Cavern. Okay, I don't hate it. How many Immortals are left on the field? Only 2. Are we sitting at just 1 Robo right now? Yeah, we are, okay. And there's no Stargate transition coming in yet. So Ultras certainly have a place here. They're very good against Stalkers and Zealots. And not great against like Archon Immortal, obviously Void Rage. Really like these Space Cows. They can take them down with ease. But we do have DnS now gearing up for another push, and he does have a bit of an anti-timing here before the tech choice of Lambo comes into fruition. If DnS can find the perfect fight and not take too much Baneling damage, this could be decent. That's a lot of Banelings though, Crayon.
God, that's a lot of Banelings, Grant. The force field's just a little bit too late there. Those line of sight blockers paying off for Lambo. The force field's not keeping those Banelings away, but again, DnS holds and Lambo gives up a lot of ground. Look at the resources lost tab there, Grant. Still about 3k resources behind. That number's probably going to grow as the game goes on. Luckily, Lambo's on 5 bases, but DnS's economy has stayed pretty solid so far. And both players have a decent bank right now, which means I'm going to give a slight advantage to DnS here. Protoss with a bank, a little bit scarier than a Zerg with a bank, I think, as long as the Protoss can maintain some of those units. I don't know. I don't like this Ultralisk transition, though. I don't know what he's hoping to do against Archon, Colossus, Immortal already out. I feel like Broodlords, even though as weird as it sounds, and honestly, Grant, we haven't seen Broodlords at all in DreamHack yet. I don't think we've seen a single Broodlord. They're falling so far out of favor. But I do think they'd be a slightly better choice, even though the Blink Stalker count is pretty high. That said, Lambo's a pro player. He knows what he's doing. Yeah,
Lambo does have great creep spread around most of the maps. We can get those Ultralisks around very quickly. And of course, he has the +2 melee upgrade as well. That's really impacted the Ultras when they do come into play here. We do have that Stargate transition beginning now for DnS. So DnS right now just wants to try and be efficient. One thing we haven't seen from Lambo, and I'm not sure, I'm not a high enough caliber player and commentator to know whether it's by DnS's fault or Lambo's fault, is where have the run-bys been? Where have the Ling counterattacks been? Where have the Banelings running in? Where have the drops? Where has anything been in terms of aggression? He kept his army together, although right now it's looking like it's going to pay off.
Yeah, this is finally paying off for Lambo here. Those corrosive biles and yoinks on the Vipers really, really cruising through the army of DnS. He lost both of his Colossus there, all the Immortals going down, and now the spine of DnS's army is completely gone. He still has a lot of Stalkers. He has one more Colossus, bless its little heart. He's working on an Immortal, but even with +3, if you only have those ground units, especially against Vipers, it's going to be very difficult to maintain with more Lings and then subsequently more Banelings on the way. And yeah, as I say, at 28 Banes coming down from Lambo now, and DnS is in for the fight of his life, going to have to try and defend this 4th base. Even if the Ultralisks don't ever hit the field, I don't think DnS has much of a chance now against Lambo. He spent his entire bank rebuilding, and he still has half of the army supply.
Yeah, and he's trying to transition into carriers. If he hadn't have taken that fight up at sort of the 1-130 mark, then I wouldn't be too concerned about this. But right now, he just doesn't have enough on the ground to deal with the swell of Zerg making its way across the map. And there's just so many Banelings forming in. This base will go down almost certainly. Baneling's going to run in and look for some more probes. The base will get destructinated, and GG! Lambo takes game 1.
Yeah, I think
join a team that he feels... I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. I don't know personally, but I believe he's looking for a more experienced team.
That's a fair assessment. That's a really fair assessment. As you said, just so many reasons why a player might not be ready to commit to a team right now. I'm so curious to see what the teams are going to look like as the games go forward. as the scene goes forward, and as we continue to evolve with either offline events or maybe some, online events or maybe some offline events, we're in for a bit of a shakeup, I think, which is, always interesting after 10 years of an esport to still have this changing, not just metagame and strategies, but this changing scene as well. Ling speed coming out for Lambo here. He's pulled obviously 2 of his drones off of gas, so not any super hyper aggressive aggression out of Lambo. I expect to see the third base and tons of drones. Meanwhile, as you just pointed out, Twilight Council coming down for DNS. We gonna see Glaives again, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I do think DNS mishandled the Glaive attack slightly. It was so close. It was like, a finger width away from being able to really find damage. If Lambo was a bit slower once, then we could have seen an extra 8, 9, 10 workers go down easily. There was enough there. But this is quicker as well. This is Glaives before Stargate. And in the last game we did see it was a Void Ray, then an Oracle, then a Twilight, then Glaives. This one is going to be slightly faster. It will hit quite hard here with a Prism behind it. So DNS is sticking to what I said. I think he does like Twilight Council play, but going for a slightly more aggressive version of it.
Yeah, more aggressive and certainly a little bit more orthodox. The last game we saw him obviously open with a Stargate and not get much damage done with that Oracle. So he transitioned into that Adept play with the hopes that he would throw his opponent off his rhythm. But it still was sort of a secondary tech, right? He went for Stargate first, then he was like, all right, that didn't work. Let's throw something else at the wall and see if it sticks. This game, a much more traditional, standard, Glaved Adept timing, Warp Prism, 4 gates, and Glaives all get hit at the same time. And that, to me, says it's less this game about scouting and about strategy and more about execution. The questions are going to be, can DNS rotate this properly? Can Lambo defend against it? And I honestly don't know who wins this one. I think Lambo probably a very strong defensive player. He's got his Roach Warren almost finished up, and he's seen this coming with the Overlord, so he knows what to expect. I'm going to give a slight edge to Lambo here, but we saw last game DNS can work wonders with his Adepts if they get in there.
Yeah, actually, right now, Lambo has just been forced to make a big round of Lings because his Roach Warren wasn't quite done in time. So 18 Lings forced out there. That's a lot of lava that Lambo doesn't really have to spare. Yeah. And now we see the numbers building up here. But DNS has to execute correctly now. He can't make a mistake. He has to be decisive. He has to catch Lambo off guard here because these Glaive decks are coming in and he can stand and fight these queens all day long. The spine, very nice. You see them go up into the main. I'm not so sure about this. There's so many units here, but the Lings are being hesitant to engage here, meaning that DNS getting an opportunity to really start taking down some of these roaches.
Yeah, he is getting some of these roaches. Of course, roach is not what he wants to be fighting at all right now. Those Lings from Lambo are rotating very well. And this is something I talked a little bit about. I did my wacky map tournament last week, Grant, where the players played on maps they're unfamiliar with called Mapper's Delight. And one thing we noticed during that tournament is the Glaved Adept pushes can be so difficult on a map you're unfamiliar with. The timings to make this damage work are so intricate that the Protoss player has to know, like, okay, I need to move my Adepts to position X, they need to shade to position Y, and then the actual Adepts need to run to position Z, right? And they know exactly when and where those positions are on all the maps in the map pool right now. Pillars of Gold is a map been in the map pool now for 2 seasons. Yep. So both of these guys are intimately familiar, whether consciously or also unconsciously, about where those shades need to happen, where they need to go. And that means a little bit more danger from DNS, but Lambo should also understand the rotations a lot better. He knows where to store those Lings, where to hold the roaches to make sure none of these Adepts get in. And so far, this looks like a really good hold from Lambo.
This was an unmitigated disaster here by DNS, to be honest with you. He killed nothing. I mean, in terms of workers killed, he's killed 1 this game, and this was a big committal to aggression. Behind this, he does have his third. He is getting his mortal count up, but Lambo has been able to do what he wants. Just a little bit of lost mining time here. I really think with this push, you are looking for more damage than was done. He forced out a lot of roaches, which I guess is it's not drones. The drone count really isn't too high for Lambo, but more was certainly expected from this push here. Just considering there was no Baneling Nest to deal with this, there was just a few roaches that came in kind of late. It just didn't work out here. I mean, even that base going down, they just went down in the face of all of these Adepts.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously with a huge swell of roaches coming out from Lambo, it looks like he's looking to get a bit more aggressive. Roach speed on the way, +1 missile attacks on the way, even finishing up that baneling nest, which I'm a little surprised about. But Lambo now has a couple options. He can go for a Spire in the main if he wants to transition to Ling Bane Muta. But since the Spire's not down yet, it looks like he does just want to get out as many roaches as possible and hit with a very strong +1 roach timing, but then have a backup as well. Baneling speed coming out, and it'll be Ling Bane ready behind this. So Lambo covering all of his bases, but what that of course means, Grant, is that there's going to be a weaker attack overall at the initial. If you invest into other techs that you're not attacking with, your initial attack is not going to be quite as powerful.
Yeah, Lambo
7 Overlords on the way from Lambo. Sorry, just had to laugh at that.
Yeah, that's a good chunk. Lambo right now getting a very good scout with the main, seeing that it is a Colossus transition. To be expected here. This is what DnS did in the last game, really. Seems to be where he wants to end up, is with a Immortal Stalker Archon Colossus-based army, with a few sentries thrown in, and the Adepts here to offer a bit of DPS. They'll eventually get traded out for Zealots, I imagine. We do see the upgrades are okay, only 1 Forge here, and 1 Evo Chamber. At the other side of the map, lots and lots of roaches coming in right now. Lambo is pretty much maxed, and this is the point now where he's going to start banking. His work count a little low. I'd like to see 10 more, getting up closer to 80, in the mid-80s maybe. But for now, it looks like Lambo's in control. He's going to be able to expand like crazy. His creep spread is underwhelming, but I mean, this is a hell of an army right now.
You know, Grant, I listen to a lot of jazz, and I love jazz albums inspired by previous people. So somebody put out like a sax album, they'd be like, I was inspired by Charlie Parker for this album. I feel like Lambo inspired by Stefano for this attack. Just going for a late game, or a mid to late game, Roach max, and putting everything you can to his speed in +1. A beautiful concave right now from Lambo, and DnS losing an awful lot. These corrosive piles picking down the force fields. No force field energy left, and right now, DnS has got a micro his little heart out with his Warp Prism, but I just don't think there's enough here, Grant.
I mean, that concave was one of the largest concaves in StarCraft 2 history. It was all the way from, like, the main to the third. Just a huge curvature here of roaches and ravagers that were able to take such an insane fight. And I mean, the supply just failed, despite force fields, despite the Colossus living for, like, 100 million years. It was just too much damage, I think. And now we're going to see... Now, the good thing, I guess, is that there was no economic damage at all. 2 workers have died this entire 10-minute game, which is just crazy. Wow. That's just a Colossus and a Prism. Like, I can do it, boys.
Have you heard of, do you know what Hands Across America is, Grant?
No.
Okay, never mind. I feel like that roach push, there were just so many roaches, they could have spread all the way across the StarCraft universe, holding hands with each other. But yeah, as you said, no economic damage done initially, but of course the first blow was so great that while it didn't kill DnS outright, it set the stage for this second push. And even though the Colossus is getting, as we said, microed to death here, finally there's enough damage on the field